Hi, welcome to 5 Minutes of Torah with a BI Rabbi. That's me, Adam Stein, your BI Rabbi for today. Well, that's an old picture of me. We took it for our website a year or two ago, but here's a newer one, taken just yesterday while I was sitting at Palette Coffee Roasters on Oak, starting to work on this. I've put together a nice little presentation for you about this week's Torah portion. I want to look at just one sentence with you, really just one word. The word is the name of this week's Torah portion, Pekudei. You can see it right there. Now, I was intrigued by this word when I was learning about this week's parashah, the weekly Torah portion, from Professor Michael Karasik, amazing scholar. I've mentioned him before in shul, maybe on a Friday night, maybe once or twice here on the video. Dr. Karasik has written several books, and he did a whole DVD video series on biblical Hebrew. And he also puts out a study sheet and an audio lesson every single week. They're often very insightful and really amazing to put in that work every week. Now, his recent accomplishment is finishing this 5-volume series. Sorry, that's 4. He did the 4 over many, many years and recently finally published the 5th one, Genesis. This is the traditional Mikraot Gedolot, where you have a bit of the Hebrew Bible or Torah at the top, and then all the Hebrew medieval commentators all around the rest of the page. And he turned it, amazingly, into English. He translated almost all of the comments by the famous medieval commentators like Rashi, his grandson Rashbam, David Kimchi, Ibn Ezra, Nachmanides, etc., and put them into the first person, as they're often written, but so you could really get the sense in modern English in the first person of the commentators arguing with each other on the page. This is the beginning of Genesis, as you can see there, but what we're looking at is the last week, the last parashah of the book of Genesis, of the book of Exodus. Okay, so it's the first verse of this week's parashah, Parashat Pekudei. Now here it is, Ele Pekudei HaMishkan, Mishkan HaEdut, Asher Pukad Al-Pi Moshe, Avodat Halviim, B'yad Itamar ben Aharon HaKohen. So we're chapter 38, verse 21. You can see it in English there as well. Sorry, let's make it bigger in English. Okay, so these are the records of the tabernacle. You can read the rest on your own, but what I want to focus in on is that first phrase there. These are the records of the tabernacle. Ele Pekudei HaMishkan. Okay, Pekudei with an F sound. When it's by itself, it's with a P sound. We can do the grammar lesson another time. So let's look at this for just a moment. That's the Jewish Publication Society translation, the same translation that's in our Etz Chaim Chumash in the shul to follow along with the Torah reading. So it seems like this translation is understanding the phrase as referring to a list of things that follow this phrase, such as these sentences: all the gold that was used for this work, for the sanctuary, for the tabernacle, 29 talents of gold, and shekels, talents, etc. So what is a talent? A talent, I did a bit of research on this. It was a unit of measurement for weighing precious metals, usually gold and silver. Well, that's pretty obvious. But what's interesting is that it was the heaviest or largest biblical unit of measurement or weight, equal to about 75 pounds or 35 kilograms. Wow. By the way, I got that number from a useful website. It has informative articles about religion and philosophy. It's called thoughtco.com. So imagine how this felt to have a talent of gold on your head, for example. Okay, who's that? King David. You can tell by the harp and the crown. And I know that he had a heavy crown on his head because in the book of 2 Samuel, it says the crown was taken from the head of their king, the Ammonites, who was fighting against. It was placed on King David's head. It weighed a talent of gold. Remember, talent is 35 kilograms of gold. That's a lot on your head. By the way, when I was looking up King David's crown, I found online, it turns out there's also a housing development in the center of Jerusalem called King David's Crown. Now, it looks sort of like maybe this could be in the new Oak Ridge, and it would probably be just as expensive as the new Oak Ridge. But there it is. Okay, now back to Exodus. The gold that went into the tabernacle of the sanctuary was 29 talents. That's over 1,000 kilograms. And the silver was 100 talents, 3,500 kilograms. So this is the stuff at the beginning of the parashah is talking about, that these are the records, etc. Okay, you can see 29 times 35, over 1,000 kilograms there. But let's go back to that first verse and this word we're trying to figure out. Okay? So, Ele Pekudei HaMishkan. These are the records of the tabernacle, the stuff that's described later about the talents and the gold, etc. So it's just this word here, pikudei, that I want to look at. And it actually shows up 4 times in the beginning of our Torah portion. Okay, here's the beginning of our Torah portion. Pikudei, I made it bigger there just a moment ago. 2 times in the first verse, 1 time in verse 25, 1 time in verse 26. And that's actually a high frequency of this word, or even this root, any variation of this word showing up. Higher frequency than many other parts of the Bible. It does show up a bunch, 5 times in a parashah we had a couple weeks ago, Ki Tisa. There it is, the first 3 verses of Ki Tisa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. But let's go back to this root, Pei Kuf Daled. Okay, so now if you don't know Hebrew so well, or you struggle with Hebrew, you don't know it at all, don't worry. The point is that this word, or some variety of this word, shows up many times in our parashah and Ki Tisa. And now, I don't want to turn this into 10 minutes of Torah with a BI rabbi. We're already over 5 minutes. So I'm going to wrap up soon. And we saw earlier that Jewish Publication Society translates it as records, right? These are the records of the tabernacle. But what else could it mean, I'm wondering? So Jeffrey Tigay, a great scholar who did many modern commentaries on several books of the Torah, he says this is the tally instead of records. Okay, so Rashi, our famous commentator in the Torah and the Talmud, his grandson, also a commentator in the Torah, Rashbam, says accounts. So a modern commentator, William Propp, he was my professor of Hebrew and Bible in University of California, San Diego. He says no translation really suffices for this word. In his comment on chapter 3, verse 16, he says it could be acknowledge. In one of the verses from Ki Tisa that I showed you a moment ago, he says accountings. And he goes on and he says that this section is rather like a final business accounting, specifying the parties, what they did, how much materials they used. He said it could mean amassing, overseeing, record keeping. Okay, so it's like you're doing the books for a business or an organization. Okay, so who are the parties? What did they do? And what materials did they use? Okay, and then he mentions that a midrash, Exodus Rabbah 51:2, imagines that the Israelites were accusing Moses of embezzlement of all things. And so Moses sort of produces the receipts. He says, here are all the receipts. These are the records of building the tabernacle. And I didn't embezzle anything. So now I want to show you a verse that really can mean something directly to us in our own daily prayer. Okay, so let's look at this Pei Kuf Daled as a verb. And in Genesis, it shows up, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, Adonai pakad et Sarah. Adonai pakad et Sarah. God took note of Sarah in many translations. Again, hard to translate this word that we're looking at so many different possible interpretations of it, but often they say God took note of Sarah because God had promised earlier that Sarah and Abraham were going to have a baby, and so God took note of Sarah and remembered what he had promised to do. Dr. Karasik says it has the basic meaning here, the verb of taking care of something that's on your to-do list, checking off something from your agenda. God remembered, on my to-do list was to take care and help Sarah and Abraham conceive and have a child. So I'm going to go do that. Pakad et Sarah. And here are our prayers. Okay? When we added the imahot to our siddur, like in the pasted in paper at the end, the inside back cover of our old siddur, or on the left side of the page on our new red siddur, we add the imahot, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Valeah, and then we get to the actual blessing, and we say Melech Ozer Ufoked Umoshia Umagen. We add that word in the middle there. Joel Rembam, rabbi in Los Angeles, did this when he presented the legal basis in our movement for adding the imahot in 1990. And he says, let's add poked to the blessing and to the introductory line right before it. And so we get Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah. So here's what we've done. We're taking a word that shows up often in Genesis, like this week, Ele Fekudei HaMishkan, in our parashah, Pekudei, and we've seen where it shows up in Genesis with Adonai Pakad et Sarah, God took note of Sarah, and we've seen how it enables us to include it in the matriarchs, including the matriarchs in our Amidah that we say throughout every day and Shabbat and holidays. Shabbat Shalom.